I think everyone are concerned with the same thing, which is we are all concerned about open distance learning and how to make it work, primarily in the built environments, right? Hence, the academic affairs of the Faculty of Architecture, Planning and Surveying organizes this session, right, as a platform for fellow colleagues of the built environment to share their ODR experiences. So we from Academic Affairs hope that with this webinar, it will shed some light on managing and maneuvering our ODL classes for the upcoming semester, inshallah. So on behalf of the organizers, I thank everyone for taking your time to be with us today. Right. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, right, allow me to introduce our first speaker. Dr. Naziah Salleh holds a PhD in building from Faculty of Built Environment, University Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. She is a lecturer in the Building Technology Schools of Housing, Building and Planning, University Science Malaysia. Her expertise is in environmental science, management and building maintenance. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Naziah Salleh, who will be speaking on COVID-19 opportunities for e-learning industry in built environment. Dr. Naziah, the session is all yours.
Thank you, our Mrs. Chairman. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I'm quite excited to see you all soon. I hope everyone is in good conditions, even though, is it raining over there? Okay.
Yes, guys.
All clear. Oh, we heavily rain in Kedah actually. I'm not able to be in the campus since our university asked us to be at home for work from home. Since the COVID-19 cases are getting worsened, so we be at from home. Okay. Shall I share the PowerPoint, the slide?
Please do.
Okay. Actually, it's not coming to my attention to do this PowerPoint since that our Dr. Emma did mention to have this kind of presentation, so it's quite formal for me to present. So COVID-19, it started with a horror, a nightmare to the industries, and even though to educational industries. But somehow we can change this into a kind of opportunities, especially to the university, since that we are kind of adopt learning on ODL. So I think and I believe learning for built environments for if we can change a little bit of methods, this can be pursued for us. Okay. There's a number of internet users in Malaysia from 2015 and 2025. It's projected that it's getting increasing every year. So for 2020, it escalated almost 30% to 30.44 million of users in Malaysia. Okay, according to Ministry of Higher Education, as that institutions can be absorbed as a business to the university. On 30th September 2019, it's about total of 52.3 students has enrolled in 20 public university in Malaysia, and the remaining is about 40.7% in private university. which is a slightly a huge numbers to regain this kind of industry in e-learning, especially during this COVID pandemic. So Malaysia aims to continue the positioning itself as international education. So meaning COVID is not the reasons of to stop all this kind of process, but we can benefit it for our educational industry. So early 2020, on March 2020, until now, we didn't know what will happen to our country and even worldwide. But life must go on. Instead of we sufferings on this kind of matter, but we have to face it and make it as opportunity. So as per mentioned in the Malaysia Education Blueprints, for 2015 and 2025, we have to adopt the IR 4.0, where we have to we have to think and critically solve the problems during this 21st century in digitally literacy, and do that having a critical thinking. Most universities actually offering e-learning through massive open online course. And I believe UiTM too have adopted this kind of systems. Okay, whereas we can share all the notes, we do all the learnings, or any kind of classrooms projecting through this e-learning platform. USMs is also been using this teaching modules for the past 17 years. And we have proceeds, and we rely on the training which offered by our university to do this kind of e-learnings. But somehow, at the stage before the COVID, we just applied it as a online learning, not totally 100% online learning, but most probably to the we blend all it via blending learning. So what is e-learning? Is a course that specifically using internet somewhere which is happening in the classroom where the educators teaching. It is interactives that allow the communications with educators and with other students. Okay, either between educators with the students and student with students. So what is the difference between e-learning and online learning? Okay. E-learning, the students and educators interact online any types of learning and pedagogy. In this form of learning, the students take a course from the educators without physically visiting in actual classrooms, so all by the visuals classrooms. Both of the communications and learning the course by online, even though it happens in the same premises. So they're using some certain platforms, utilize the materials in e-learning and connected with each other using the internet. But somehow, online learning, the main element of online learning is to get learning experience by using internet connections. Somehow they need they still need the physical connections or physical communication between another students and the educators. So generally they use the same, almost the same platforms such as Zoom, cloud meeting, and learning the course. But the difference is they need to have this physical communications rather than e-learning, whereas 100% are visuals educations on digital educations. So in e-learning, there are 10 types of e-learning methods, which most of these methods are using all these materials. They apply the video classrooms, they apply the virtual class, the interactive e-lessons. They have the instructor, the LED, the electronic simulations, the mobile learnings, and even though the self-paced between the students and the educators, the lecturer. So normally, we will apply 5 of these methods on these e-learnings, whereas they're using on the computer-managed learning methods, where computers are used to manage and assess on the learning process. It's operated through the information databases. The computer will manage the learning system. It's operated through the information database. The database will contain on the bits of information which the student has to learn, together with a number of ranking, and the parameters which enable the system to be individualized, which is similar to the computer instructions CAI, where the computer assisted to train the methods using the combination of multimedia such as text, graphics. But actually, it's almost the same. But the difference is the facilities of these 2 methods. And if we apply the traditional methods, the physical learning, so most of us are using the synchronized learning, which use the e-learning base that we apply now. And this, the bad things about the e-learning, this message that there might be the social isolations and poor teacher to student and or the student to student relationships. Currently, it's one of the most popular, but somehow it's not the what we call the student-centered learning. It's more to the directly instruction from the lecturer to the students. That they not have any instruction or any communication between student and student. The most method that we're using in university via this e-learning is synchronous online learning. It's a group of students study independently at different times and location from each others. We adopted this during COVID, actually. So without real-time communications, which is taking place, these methods are often considered to be more student-centered than their synchronized counterparts, as they give students more flexibility. So they can think, they can give an ideas rather than accept only the directions from the educators or the lecturer. For the fixed e-learnings, even though it's quite a fancy name, but sometimes it's familiar with the fixed context, means that used during the learning process, which is not changed from the original state of the conventional types. What I'm going to inform that we are going to adopt this computer managed learning CML, the computer assisted instructional and asynchronous online learning better in this e-learning. And even though we are proposing to the collaborative online learning, whereas it's kind of a modern type learning method through which multiple students learn and achieve their learning objective as a group. In built environments, we do have a task of studio group, isn't it? So students in this task, the students have to work together and practice teamwork in order to achieve the common learning objective. This is always done through the formation of an effective group, where each individual has to take into account the strengths and weaknesses of each other students to set the goal. This boosts the communication skills and teamworking, and this is good for the studio methods actually. So normally for the methods and platform using during that we apply during the e-learnings, actually, so most of them we applied in online learning, and today we also use the same methods. Whereas during the teaching delivery, the lecturers will teach or will represent a notes, pre-recorded or streams online using the software, the Zooms, Cloud Meeting, YouTube, or Padlet. Assignment and evaluations. During the assignment and evaluations, most of us will do the quiz and assignments, which can be uploaded online via our e-learning platforms or another platform or another software, such as Socrates or Google Doc. During the peer interactions, by groups, in groups, the discussions during the project conducted online, also use the Macros team or the Google Hangout team or Zoom Cloud Meeting. Learning resource and if you get the learning resources sharing, we can use Moodle, Cloud, Google's, and Classroom, and even the resources materials. If you want to access on the ebook or textbooks or audiobooks, there's a lot of opportunity that have been given by university that we access the scribes, audible stories, Cambridge University Press or Gesto. I think that all these universities has offered this kind of platform, and I believe there's no initial cost will be reimbursed if we can converse or we can continue of adapting the e-learnings towards building our built environments. Sorry. So the e-learning, the strengths of the e-learnings, you can have it, you can learn it anywhere, anytime, and any place. It's a flexible format, tailored, personalized learnings, and you can have it where and how, where it can reduce the stress if you are controlled by time or space. Okay. The second one that it can't, yeah, Miss Dr. Nurhayati. Okay. And we can offer this synergy and creative team where the dynamic interactions will take over on the different between instruction and the students. Resource and ideas can be shared. It can nurture the high quality dialogues between students, reflecting the comments from others, from educators, from lecturers, responding on the directions, responding on the moving on the next task, on the next item. This allows the student time to articulate response with more depth and more thought. It's more student-centered or collaborative, as mentioned earlier. It's individual students respond to the course and to comments from the other students within the broader, so that we can have a quality students which can conversely, clearly, communicate clearly, and we can whom that can achieve the objective, respond to the objective. The student that can control the learning experience and tailor the class discussion to meet their own specific needs. For the higher comprehensions, it's built the interactive tools and e-learning platform so that all the stakeholders, all the students and educators will effectively apply on the IT technology. Okay, the graphical and live video streaming, yes, it's the most popular choice, but we do have another kind of platform or methods. Affordables, whereas since that using the e-learnings, it can reduce the costs of mobilizations, the cost of the process, the projected cost, the overheads cost. So it can reduce the fee. So by using the affordable internet, it can quick and easily deliver the enable over the internet. Those who have internet, they can get the information by the tip of fingers. So the energy efficiency, it reduces the carbon footprints reductions in papers, okay, the energy consumptions, the CO2 level. So it's more sustainable to the environment. But somehow, e-learnings have their own weaknesses, especially on the technologies, whereas they have the acuity and accessibility with their needs, the computer literacy among students, amongst the educators. And somehow it gives the bad impression and give a bad effects if they offer the limitation of technology, especially the internet accessibility. The student is the alternative medium of education mature, self-disciplined, those who are motivated to have high learning, education learnings, to get the skills, so that the students, the targeted students for this kind of e-learnings must be age with 70 years above, which is suitable for the tertiary education for the university students. But it depends on how the students' motivational efforts to do this kind of learning. And part of the facilitator, the educator, is a lack of physical presence, since 100% of learning process are via the internet or the digital methods. So lack of so the facilitator, the educator, and between the students, they haven't been met, and they will never know each other's. So lack of essential online qualities, and instructor must be able to communicate well in writing and in the language in which the course. So the objectives must be achieved. Okay, all the PLO, all the CO must be clearly stated. So the online program will be weakened in its facilitators are not adequately prepared to function in the virtual classroom. So at part of administration and faculty, it might have a slightly an awareness of the importance of proper facilitator training, essentials facilitator characteristics, and limitation of class size. Size will also effects on the delivery of the learnings. The online environments level of synergies, the important source of energy, the learning in the virtual classroom, effects on the delivery of the study. In larger classes, more than 20% student, 20 students, sorry, the synergy level started to shift, whereas the facilitator can get individually assessments towards this student. So what should not be taught? Some subjects should not be taught online. Examples, the hands-on subjects such as a fieldwork, laboratory assessment, especially for the built environment, we have a lot of fieldwork projects. as an alternative, in UiTM, in HBP, we propose to have a one-day workshop of handling the hands-on activities every semester. So after the workshop, we will give the certificate which can approve, which can have a similar activities, the collaboration with the industry. The curriculum use of dialects among students in the form of written communications and group interactions and participation, which is we have to design the curriculums, which is can be delivered through e-learning. But somehow, in our case, we have to reliable with our board of studies or the MQA requirement. So the opportunities in e-learning in built environment, we're increasing the market demand for e-learning education. For example, we have the joint and offshore program with other institutions, HBP versus KPMs or PolyPD. It's actually 100% e-learning methods during this COVID. Previously we do have about 90% of online learnings. But somehow this we give an opportunity and we give on sumber pendapatan lah to the schools. Okay, we are offering the training course to CIDB for CCD points and ISM. This what can benefit to the faculty or to the organizations. So for example, even though there are ICS, they offer the training course for to everyone, to the public. The opportunities, another opportunity is increasing the interest for different categories of bodies in learning education services. Even though by MIDA, they encourage the local and foreign investors to tap on investment opportunities in this online education sectors, especially by giving the grants to the schools or individuals researchers. There are also welcomes more companies to venture in new growth areas of high value added knowledge. It has been launched last year, if I'm not mistaken, and yet still offers more to educators. So the third is the expansion of technology causes the latter to become a perfect environment for expansion and development of e-learning educational services, especially to the private sectors. Fourthly, radical transformation of all aspect education from access. So we will keep on changing. We can change all the pedagogy, change on the evaluations, the education, the training among educators. So as a result on the technology dynamics. So the fifth one, the relatively lower cost of e-learning services and studies rather than the conventional one. As a conclusions, the review of opportunities and challenge surrounding to adopt this kind of learnings in built environments reveal that certain factors both in favor of and against it. But some consideration, especially on the hands-on activity learning, should be taken into considerations. However, these disciplines are almost can be found in the programs. So either we have to liaise with the board of studies or the MQA requirements not to replace, but to adopt another methods which can cover this kind of disciplines. So another concern is to enhance on the pedagogy and assessment method of e-learning for built environments. So thank you to
Okay, thank you, Dr. Naziah, for the sharing session. There's so many information that you have shared with us, especially on the opportunities on e-learning and how it can benefit us, right? Especially in the built environment. Thank you so much for that. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are going to proceed, right? I'm going to invite the second speaker, which is Dr. Zahiruddin Fitri of Hassan. So he is a lecturer in building surveying at the University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. Right. His expertise and research are in the building pathology, concrete durability, and construction technology. So he is an avid e-learning advocate. Huh? All right. So can I continue? All right. He is an avid e-learning advocate. He loves tinkering with computers and exploring new softwares and Web 2.0 tools for education. Right. His passion led the university to appoint him as the head of the e-learning at the Academic Enhancement and Leadership Development Center. And sharing his ODL experience, please welcome Dr. Zahiruddin Fitri Abu Hassan. Doctor, the session is all yours.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum, very good morning to all the academics who is joining the session from UiTM and beyond. So as the MC rightly pronounced just now, I'm the head of e-learning at the University of Malaya, and at the same time, I'm also a built environment lecturer. I teach building pathology to the building surveying department. My research interest is in concrete durability and also in e-learning. So I'm going to share with you my presentation so that we can start the session rightly. Okay, let me find the right screen first. Okay, hopefully you are looking at a screen saying pengajaran atas talian semasa PKP. Is that the right one? Okay, so thank you very much. I've actually prepared the slides in Malay because UiTM was inviting me, so I didn't know that the session is conducted in English. But anyhow, let's continue. So the presentation is entitled Pengajaran Atas Talian Semasa PKP. So the previous speaker talks about a very macro level approach to e-learning and how it works. So I'm going to go down at the operational level. I would say I will share the experiences from UM as an organization and also our faculty and our department at a more like modest, the educator level of the implementation. So at the University of Malaya, what we did was we created a campaign to teach. So to teach online. So we call it the hashtag #UMTeachOnline Online campaign. And with this campaign, what we did was we created webinars, we created resources for our lecturers so that then they can function as best as possible during teaching online. So as an introduction, UM is not really alien to the concept of e-learning. Since 2016, we had our annual e-learning week, where what we did was we block one whole week in one semester, and we lock up all the studios and all the classrooms, and we make our lecturers and our students go and teach online using our LMS, which is a Moodle-based LMS called Spectrum. Our LMS is actually quite old, so it started since 2003. But since it uses Moodle, we started to use Moodle officially since 2012, and for that, the number and also the percentage of people of our lecturers using e-learning fully has risen year and year, and I think that helps us to, I would say, prepare us to go online. So the transition for our lecturers to go online during the COVID-19 is actually quite good. So again, as I said before, we do the Teach Online campaign so that then we can further support our lecturers and also our students, so that then they can run their teaching as effectively as possible. So we had these lines of seminars and webinars online. We invited our e-learning experts. So we have a number of e-learning experts in the university, but at the same time, we do invite all the e-learning experts from other public universities, like Prof. Karim from USM. You can actually find this resources if you like to see what we did at UM. So my center, which is Pusat Penambahbaikan Akademik dan Pembangunan Kepimpinan, or what we call it is Academic Development and Leadership Enhancement Center. You can find the resources in our website, which is www.edec.um.edu.my. And then you are free to download the resources. We have a number of resources that we can share. Things like the guideline. So we created an online teaching and learning guideline, and then there are also books to refer to, how to do assessment and a number of other things. We also write quite extensively in our blog, which is you can find the blog in the website, and we write on issues like the usage of technology, how to use the technology, and what are the discussions around the use of technology, things like exam online, using Turnitin, and other related items. So let's go down to the faculty level and the departmental level of how we do e-learning at the university. So as an introduction, the Faculty of Built Environment in we have 5 departments, 5 study programs, which is under the architecture department, under urban planning. We have building survey, we have quantity survey, and we also have real estate. So I think that would be quite similar to what you have FSPU, isn't it? And all the programs that we have in built environment, in Faculty of Built Environment in is actually accredited by all the major professional bodies, both in Malaysia and overseas, things like RICS and RIBA, among others. There are a few challenges that we had to face so that then learning can run effectively. So the university uses the main platform, which is Spectrum, the Moodle-based system. And we also have accounts with Microsoft and also Google. So we use our Microsoft 365 facilities and also the Google Meet quite extensively. At the same time, the Department of Architecture actually opted to go into Zoom so that then they can facilitate architecture studio. And from our discussion with architecture, the reason why they had to shift into Zoom rather than using Microsoft 365 and Google Meet is that they wanted, especially when during the create session, they wanted to be able to so the examiners wanted to be able to write and draw on the screen for the grades. So that is something that's quite lacking for Microsoft 365 and also for Google Meet. So that was the reason why they had to move into Zoom. And of course, the university, after listening to their reasoning, allowed that to happen. I'm sorry for the sound. So I think somebody started to building works while we are doing this webinar. So hopefully you're not disturbed that much. I will go through the two ways that we do our teaching. The first one is synchronous learning, and the next one is asynchronous learning. So the synchronous learning, what we use is, as I said before, it's either Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and also Zoom. The majority of the university actually uses Microsoft Teams because we had a big sort of campaign around UiTM Teaching Online using the Teams account to maximize the Teams account that we have. I believe UiTM also have Microsoft Teams. So I do remember that Dr. Zahiruddin, if I'm not mistaken, having a training session together with me using Microsoft Teams with Microsoft actually. So for us, Microsoft Teams is the go-to platform for the online classes. And then we also use sparingly we use Google Meet. Because the difference between Google Meet and Microsoft Teams is that Google Meet is a little bit easier, especially for the people who are not really technology savvy. So we allow our lecturers to use Google Meets as well. The only thing that we tell them to do is in either of these platforms to record their sessions so that then they can the students can actually go back and rerun the recording so that then they can go in and sort of if there are places where they don't really understand or they are failing to catch up with what the lecturer is saying, then they can go back and rewind the playback. I think for us, actually at the university level, it is important that we know what is the readiness of the student before we choose whichever technology that's suitable for synchronous learning. In we are actually quite grateful because there is not a high percentage of students with a poor internet bandwidth. I know from national data that UiTM is among the university that is greatest hit by this because quite a number of students in UiTM came from B40 family. But for it is actually we own the students with poor bandwidth connection is about 10%. So it's not really that bad, and the university actually quite is quite proactive in helping the students to get better internet connection. So we send them SIM cards. We have a deal with Cellcom so that then the students will be able to continue their classes and their learning throughout the semester. So I'm going to share with you another screen, which is the way that we do our classes in Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to model this using my class, which I taught last year, building procurement and specification. So let's how do I unshare the screen and change? Okay, yeah, okay, find it. Share screen. So I'm going to go into Microsoft Teams. Okay. Put this up. Okay, so now it's can you see the Microsoft Teams view? Okay, thank you. So this is the Microsoft Teams that we use for synchronous learning. So online classes, most probably. What we do is we created classes. So like this one, this is the class that I've created in Microsoft Teams, which is a mirror of what we originally have in our Spectrum data Spectrum platform. And we use this class in Teams to create and record the online classes, the synchronous learning sessions. So what we can do here is so these are if you look at the screen here, these are the classes session that we have with the students. So I scheduled this around the normal teaching schedule, and at the same time the students are also invited into this classroom so that then they can continue and they can join the learning session. And as far as learning is concerned, what I do is I record all the sessions with the students. I'm going to play back a session that I have, and I'm going to show you one of the ways that we run classes in our platform. So can you hear the sound from this? You can't hear the sound? Okay, let me okay. So let me try and change the settings so that you can hear the sound. Okay, so that should do it. Okay. Of the can you hear the sound now? The earlier part of measurement, okay, you see that you so this is me teaching reinforcement calculations for the students. Foundation. So as you now know, foundation is measured in cubic meters in volumes because of the amount of fluid that we are working. Okay. So, and what I wanted to show here is the use of digital inking on tablets, so that then the students will be able to follow the measurement or the reinforcement in this example as how they would be able to follow it in a normal classroom. So I use the digital inking. I use the this one is using Teams, so I use the blackboard, the whiteboard provided in Teams, and then I uploaded a picture of the reinforcement in the whiteboard, and then I started to write and draw in the whiteboard using the digital inking technology. So what you need is a computer with pen input, or you can buy an iPad and use it that way. Okay, so that's
So it doesn't really take any weight, okay, or as much weight as the high tensile and high yield steel. Okay, so that is how you differentiate. And the use of either high tensile steel or high yield steel or mild steel will be determined by the engineers of the project. Because they will actually
find the
calculate
where I start. I studied that. This is where
can be
I start
seen
drawing.
by looking at how the measurement is actually written. Okay, so it says here Y20 150 cc's both ways. So both ways means like that. So one way and then the other way. So 150 cc's means the gap between the bars themselves is actually 150 mm center.
Okay, so that's how we use digital inking technology, writing on tablets, to enable learning to happen in our online classes using Teams. So apart from that, the good way, the good way of using Teams that you can actually schedule the classes quite easily. So I believe somebody from UiTM should have already taught the lecturers how to do to create the teams, create the channel, and also schedule classes. So I don't have to go into it. So if you haven't been trained on doing that, so please pester the teaching and learning center to teach you how to do that. Okay, so let's move on. The next one I'm going to talk about is the asynchronous learning. So we will have a mixture of both synchronous and asynchronous. It is very important actually to have both ways of teaching, because as we all know, not everybody have enough bandwidth to follow an online class. So all the class sessions is recorded and it's available for the students. So once they have a better internet connection, or they are somewhere that's have fast bandwidth, then they can actually see and rewatch the recording of the session. So we use our Spectrum platform to do asynchronous learning. Or what we did in Spectrum is that we use it to index all the resources, the activities, and also the assessment in the classroom. And of course, we make the links to the recording of the sessions available. A note about interactivity. There are reports that we found, or we hear that there are small percentage of lecturers who just create everything asynchronously. They put up their lecture notes and put up their PowerPoint presentation, and then they just leave it to the students to learn for themselves. It is not, I would say it's not a good idea to teach, because what you do is you are leaving the students on their device, and you would not know whether they understood the sessions or the topic until the time of exam. So we make sure and we really make this a big point with our lecturers. The activities need to be interactive, because it serves at least three purposes. Number one is it gives information to the lecturers about how much the students understood from their lessons. Okay, so as an example, if you create a PowerPoint presentation and you put it in the LMS, you need to have assessment questions that accompanies that PowerPoint. So then you'll be able to gauge whether the students understood the contents of the PowerPoint. Of course, that serves the second objective, to make sure that the students actually follow the learning activity. So you can actually put in, or you find a YouTube video of like a 1 hour lecture, but do you know that the students actually watched the entire 1 hour lecture on YouTube? So by having an interactivity embedded in the learning resources, you know that the students are actually following those learning activities. And we can also use it as students' attendance. So for any activity, normally there will be log stamps or time stamps in the students' resources and students' answers. So that allows the educators to know that the students actually do this and they are actually attending the classes, so to speak. Other applications that we use in our teaching are change the view again. So let me move into the next. Okay, so other active applications that we use in teaching in UM are so these are the three basic samples. So Dropbox Paper, H5P, which is embedded as a plugin in our Moodle Spectrum, or you can use Word or PowerPoint online. So there is a question that I saw pop up just now. Let me check the chat. Okay. Question: should we sign up for free or purchase the Microsoft Teams app? Actually, I believe that UiTM have the whole Microsoft suite. So you don't, please don't purchase it yourself. It will cost you money, money that the user have already paid for you. So ask your teaching and learning center for the account. Make sure that they give you the right account. They are so this is just my knowledge on Microsoft 365. There is an A1 account and A3 account. So request the A3 account from the teaching and learning center or your IT center. Okay, so so the application, going back to the application. So the application that we have, we use Dropbox Paper, H5P in our Spectrum, and also Word and PowerPoint Online. So Word and PowerPoint Online comes free with the Office 365 account. So and the student will be able to also use the same account because for the institution, once the lecturer get the usage, and then the students also is given the same account. So then you'll be able to actually interact online in real time using Word or PowerPoint or other Microsoft suite of productivity tools. Other active applications like Dropbox Paper, I'm going to share screen again to show you the Dropbox Paper. Where I'm sharing this one. Share content. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing the right one. So this is the I'm showing you the Dropbox Paper. Okay, so Dropbox Paper is it's an application from Dropbox. Okay, but it allows the student to collaborative work collaboratively work online. So if you look at the left-hand side, you can see the name of the of students, Muhammad A, Nur Azima, Azris, Larina. So these are the name of students, and from this, I know that the students are working in groups. Everybody is pitching in to write the resources or to do the work that I've assigned them. So that is the power of Dropbox paper. And at the same time, me as the educator can actually go in and then put comments and in here, for example. So it becomes something that's interactive, and it's become something that is very valuable to the students. So I would really invite you to try and use Dropbox paper for your classes next semester for interactivity between you and the students. Okay, so I'm aware of the time. So that's it that I think I have time to share with you. So thank you for having me, UiTM. You can download this presentation at this link that I'm sharing. And I'm going to also copy the link and put it in the chat so that then you can have a copy of that. Okay, so there are a few questions here. So this one is, I am wondering about students' performance during online distance learning. They do better or about the same in normal PNP. So this is from Hazlina. So I would say that in Alam Bina, we find that the students' performance are quite similar. Even in some courses, we find that they did significantly better. So I think the questions of whether students are performing well or not depend on how we design the learning experience for the students online. So if we design it well, there is no reason that they can actually perform better, because it brings sometimes it brings value added into the students' experience. For example, just now I was talking about the architecture studio, isn't it? So during the normal studio face-to-face, and what happens is that you'll only be able to invite certain number of people to join the create session, and it will be like local architects. So of course, when we are in KL, it's a little bit easy. FSPU FSPU is also quite near the central area, so it's quite easy for you to find architects firms to join in the create. But during PKP, what we found out is that the architecture department actually invited architects from overseas to join the create session. So it becomes a value added for the student experience. So that is, I think, something that we need to think about when we design the learning for next semester. So this is a question from Ahmad Haki Nazali. So will they have problems using Android or Apple-based gadgets? Not from what I've heard of. The students are. It's possible for the students to use either Windows or Android or Apple, because everything is now browser based. So it should be okay for the users of all the OSs. Okay, so I think that's all. So if you have further questions, you can ask me, or you can actually get in touch with your teaching and learning center to ask them to teach you all these Web 2.0 tools for education. So I see that Siti is already smiling. Okay. So thank you, UiTM, for having me. So I return the session back to Siti Suhaidah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Salam. Thank you, Dr. Zahir. You have answered a couple of questions. All right. Maybe they're too eager to ask you that. All right. So without further ado, now allow me to introduce our final speaker for today. All right. So the final speaker is Nik Farhana Nik Azhari. So she was awarded the UiTM ODL Awards at the UiTM Academic Awards 2019, which is actually held this year. Right, with several years of architectural practice, she joined the academic profession during her MSc in Heritage and Conservation Management in UiTM Shalom. So she is currently the head of Center of Studies Architecture, Faculty of Architecture, Planning and Surveying, UiTM. So she has a genuine interest in children learning environment, where she integrates a passion for children's environment with heritage building in her current research, which actually focuses on the affordance of pre-war school design for contemporary learning. So ladies and gentlemen, speaking to us on the topic, strategizing your ODL studio projects. So please welcome Nik Farhana Nik Azhari. Niki, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Puan Siti Suhaidah. Can you hear me? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to welcome to both our speakers, Dr. Naziah as well as Dr. Rafizuddin, is it? I'm sorry about your name wrongly. Zahiruddin. Dr. Zahiruddin.
Just call me Zahir.
Okay, Dr. Zahir. Okay, first and foremost, thank you everyone for it has been an interesting discussion and sharing by the previous two speakers. Dr. Naziah was speaking about on a bigger, on a macro level, on very generic e-learning on ODL experiences that we have been, I think we have been doing and have been exploring in here. While Dr. Zahir pula, I think what he discussed, he was more focusing on what the faculty has attempted and what his own experience in classroom when he introduced a lot of these platforms for ODL that I think in UiTM we also have the same opportunity because all means the ODL or e-learning experience and platforms has been provided by UiTM, I think, years back. However, as usual, last March, that thing every one of us, suddenly we became an expert. We became explorative. We wanted to we just have to learn and try to new things. So it happened to me also, especially. I always bear in mind that I'm not a savvy tech. I'm always in comfort zone. So one of the benefits of pandemic happening is for me to open up and see like there's so plenty of things to explore in my teaching. Now, what I'm discussing today, can you open up with the sorry, yeah. See the screen? Okay. Now, so what I'll be sharing today is about what happened when the pandemic started. It's still happening. So this is sharing is all about what happened last semester when I was appointed taking over the final semester student of Bachelor of Science in Architecture. So it was a semester 08 with a very large number of students. So at one point it was so exciting because I've been observing the studio and how the teaching and learning is totally different from the lower years. So I was excited when I was given the chance to do this. And everything was nice, tentatively, everything was on schedule until week 3. But however, when the pandemic occurred, I started to, not to say freak out, but I started to get very confused. I do not know what to do, but Alhamdulillah, we managed along the way with a group of tutors. We managed and we survived throughout the semester, and it was a very fun experience we had. And that's why I think one of the reasons why I was invited to share my experience for ODL studio project last semester. So, but today I'm going to focus specifically on what the strategy that I have actually implemented. All right. So I hope at the end of this sharing, I hope everybody will go home with a little bit of knowledge about how do we go about tweaking our design project, okay, so that it work for this the coming semester. Now, I would like to focus straight away to what I'll be discussing. I'll be talking about these 4 items. I'll be talking a little bit about the background, the context, what we did, what the studio did last semester. Then this is for you to know, and you to know how we go about with the practice of the studio. Then roughly I'm going to focus on item number 2. I'm going to talk about concern, especially when the pandemic occurred. So issues came and there were concerns raised. So I'm going to discuss about that. Then number 3 is that how do we tackle with the concern and the issues. I'm going to share with you what are the strategies that has been taken by us. And number 4, of course, some little bit of recommendations that might work for you in your coming ODL studio project. Now, just a little bit about context, what we did last semester. So this is the batch of student last semester. It's the final semester student of 08 year 4. So basically they are graduating for part 1 in UiTM. And total number of students last semester was huge, 84 of them. And we have 11 numbers of tutors. I have, including myself, is 11. I have 3 other full-timers to assist me, along with other 7 part-timers. All the 7 part-timers are all consist of professional architects practicing. Yeah? Number 4, and the last one would be external assessors. So we do also have external assessors throughout the semester, especially on every 1 month duration. I think this has been practiced ever since way long time ago. So this is something that we do in our studio when we call external practitioner to come into the studio and to give feedback during the critique session. So we still do that even when ODL take over. So ratio per student last semester, because of the big numbers and because the number of students, we have approximately about 6 to 9 students per tutor. So that was quite okay, manageable so far. Yeah, moving on to the next slide. Now, just a little bit about what we did last semester on the studio project. So I'm just going to go roughly so that you know the complexity of the project last semester, so that actually will raise some concern later when the ODL started. Now, the project on last semester, we were doing on UTC, Urban Transformation Center. Well, it might sound very boring, you can say, but for me, the title on this project was more on the redefinition or re-entry of what you mean by UTC in the year 2030. So the goal of the project was to see how a youngsters or how a young people like what the 08 students as youngsters, how they would foresee a UTC could be in year 2030 and years time. So basically, they still have to have the same governmental offices being provided in the UTC, but they have to have an extra added value to the UTC when they have to add a little bit, maybe some sort of supplementary spaces. For example, if they want a UTC, if they think that UTC should also encourage people to walk, encourage Malaysians to eat healthy food, so they have to design the UTC in such a way when they come to pay the bills, when they come to settle on their income tax and all that, they still can enjoy good food or healthy food. They can jog and they can do the gym, etc. So they are trying, what they tried to do was they trying to give an idea of what a UTC would be in 10 years time. So what happened is, given the requirement, so we give very basic design requirement last semester. So the UTC should be, the built-up area for the UTC about 2,500 square meters square, and the land for acreage is about 2.5, and then they have to go a maximum of 2 stories only. Nothing low, nothing more, but just 2 stories enough. This is because of on the consistency throughout the whole across the studio. Now the site given we had, because there's 84 number of students, so we divided into 2 sites, Kota Damansara and Subang Jaya. The reason because we wanted the student to have almost apple to apple comparison between these 2 different areas. Site chosen is just a walking distance to the nearby LRT. So this is something actually to promote UTC, the public transportation to the UTC that is being designed by the government. Now, the task is that because they are in 08, they are supposed to be formulating their own design brief. So what you see on the screen is roughly what we gave them. So they have to come up with their own brief, their own issues, their own concept, definitely, and of course their own schedule of accommodation, when they have to decide on their own what the UTC would consist of. So they have to develop their own design brief. So basically, each one of them have to work harder in 08 because they will be going out to work right up in few months' time, right after that. So what happened before the pandemic, like I said earlier, the schedule that I have prepared for them, it was, I anticipate it was supposed to be smooth going because through my experience from the previous semesters. So what I did, yes, we stick to the duration of 15 weeks for the semester. Then I had organized 11 lectures by all the lecturers involved in this. So we managed to finish 3 out of 11 lectures right up until the pandemic, right up until the MCO. Then lastly, also I have also organized 5 different crit sessions throughout the semester for 15 weeks duration. So basically about 3 weeks time they have to have 1 crit, or 4 weeks time they have 1 crit, and also they have on 1 group presentation. So Alhamdulillah, right until MCO, we managed to finish these 2. We managed to had the site visit, of course, during the first week. Then we moved on to the group presentation, and then we also managed to do 1 face-to-face crit session when each of the students actually already presented on their concept formulation for their individual project. Now, however, when the pandemic strikes, we started to have new norms, and everybody started to mindset that the teaching and learning will be different. So what happened is that we take the opportunity to explore on ODL. So this is when open and distance learning started in UiTM. Not to say in UiTM we didn't start much earlier, but I think formally everybody started with this, and I think throughout the whole world we did this, including myself. So ODL was a big thing last semester, but I enjoyed it. So now, what concern arise when the ODL started is on this 3. We have more of other concern definitely, but I'm focusing into 3 of this because 2 of this is the one that I think is the key points that how I actually manage the studio. Now, the first one is when is my concern was ICT tools. Back then, like I said earlier, I was not a savvy. I'm not a savvy tech still, but I think much better now. So what happened is that the ICT tools was the one that concerned me very much, not only to myself, for fellow tutors, but of course, actually for the students. Now, the students might not have problems in that as much, except for the accessibility to network and etc. but maybe on adapting to a new way of studio learning might be different to them. But for me and the rest of the tutors, we, on the other part, we were trying our best to learn into open mind about what are the ICT tools that will be most suitable for our studio. Now, number two is what concerned us was the understanding, especially myself, after going through a few semesters with 08, what I saw was the lack of understanding on technicalities and of course the construction, on the construction side. So what happened is that when ODL started, this was one of the things that came to my mind, because especially how do we go about doing this without us having to sketch on the students' work, without us having to make the students make models. So there's a lot of concern and issues raised when ODL started. So these are the things that I say, oh no, I'm sure there's going to be an issue, especially on resolving this roof structure, particularly. So what happened is that I say, okay, then we have to do something about it. So that was one issue. Another issue is, of course, first time with ODL experience. We never know what will happen, what will come out at the end of the semester. So what happened is that we have to figure out something to see that the final outcome is successful, or maybe at least not that bad. So the third concept would be, how do we make the final outcome at least a certain quality, that for this graduating batch, especially this is the batch, this is the cohort batch. So it means by right, tentatively that time they were supposed to be exhibiting their work to LUM when they come over for our validation in October, supposedly. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. So I'm going back to this three key concern that I had back then. Now, what happened is that re-strategize needed. So it happened, then I just sat down and rework everything again. And then what happened is that I say, okay, we have to do something about it. So I'm answering the issues or the concern by having the strategy. So here I am presenting to you what strategy I use for concern one, which is what ICT tools I would be using back then. Now, again, bear in mind, it was so sudden to adapt to or to learn a new platform, ODL. So what happened that back then I decided to choose the most friendliest, the most easiest apps to run the semester last semester. So I only use this very basic apps that you see on the screen, and the most common one that we use is Google Meet and WhatsApp. Okay, and this is where we communicate with students most of the time, either in group, either in the whole studio, or either individual. So we use these two platforms to do that. Then we have also we take advantage of what the UiTM has subscribed for us for the Google. So what happened is that I fully use the Google Drive for the storage of the students' work, the Google Forms to manage all sorts of forms are needed throughout the semester, assessment sheets, I use the Google Sheets. So basically these are the things that we use in our normal daily life, even before the pandemic occurs. And then, of course, Gmail. Why do I say Gmail? Because I think Gmail has given me the chance of, for contingency platform, because sometimes students, when they didn't manage to submit on time, because of restriction of time that we have given, so I think email was, I think, the last solution to work this out. And then my favorite would be Adobe PDF Reader. Now, this might sound very old-fashioned, very old school, okay, compared to earlier speaker, okay, when you use all Microsoft Teams and all Zoom, that I did not want to even explore all of those back then, because I said they were time consuming. I'm more focusing on what I can give to the student. So I use PDF Reader, and for surprisingly, it allows me to do sketches. So whenever, instead of rather me doing the sketches or the doodling on the screen, on my laptop screen, so I use PDF because I think it worked. So what happened is that when the student submit their floor plans or their drawings to me, then I will return, and in PDF, I request in PDF. So I return back to them in PDF, but with all my doodlings, with all the colors that we can do. So it's very simple apps that we can use, but it worked. It worked, and the students say that it's good because they can see how, and then they can see the sketches evidently, rather than just speak about it. So I think it's something to work rather than using something else. But I might consider something else, Zoom and etc. in the coming semester. Now, what I did was we use the various tools. Then we have to remember as well, we're not just communicating with the students or who are we anticipate to be well versed in all these ICT tools. We also have to bear in mind that we have group of tutors with all sorts of backgrounds, with all sorts of knowledge about ICT. So I have to bear in mind back then that of course I do not want my tutors to be left over. So there's tutorials between us just to teach them how to go about with the spreadsheet and all of that. So it was fun in a way, but at least tutors all are familiar with the ICT learning tools that we can use in our studio. So we did that. I used the friendliest tools that you can imagine. Okay. So number two is how I do we overcome the risk concern. Number two is when the understanding of the students, particularly on the construction and technicalities. So what happened is that what I did was I revised the project schedule. Of course, everybody did that. Everybody of us, every lecturers will have to do that. But my aim was I wanted it to be, of course, it's workable, it's flexible, and the most important thing is fresh. Fresh in a way that I want it to be something different so that it doesn't scare the students back then, because as I think everyone had the experience when ODL started, then the students like, how do we go about with this? How do we get feedback from you? How does this going to happen? So we need something fresh. So I revised the project schedule and introduced funky terms. The students, that age, they like those Insta terms and all that. So I introduced funky terms. So I use ODT, OSME, OTutor, OMOODS. So all these make them be interested or be curious about what we're going to do. So they have to find out. So as you can see, I introduced all these. ODTs when online. So when you see the word O means online design theory. OSME is when online studio meeting. Okay, OTutor is on when they have personal tutoring with their prospective tutor, and almost is online moderations. That's the one I'm going to explain much in brief later. Now, in the new revised schedule, I also have the lecture series rather than spreading it throughout the whole semester. What happened is that we push all the lecture series to be much earlier. So as you can see, the lecture series are being given in much in advance. In fact, it was even completed in the first 4 weeks of the semester, okay, after the MCO. So it pushed all the lecture much earlier because we do not want the momentum to spread, because that was the starting point of students to get themselves indulged, get themselves familiar with us being Google Meet. So we do not want to break that momentum. We do not want to break that consistency. So what happened is that we push all that, and one day when we meet, for example, if you see the first week on the 16th of April, when we have two different lectures. So we have lectures back to back. So at least the students are there just to listen and they get the knowledge at the same time. Another advantage of having your design lectures much earlier is that they have all those expectations already. So when they are given all the knowledge, when they are given all the expectations that we wanted them to have and consider in their design, so at least they already mindset, we hope they mindset that, okay, these are the things that they have to be doing for the whole semester. So I think that's the advantage of having an advanced lecture series. Then number three, when I re-highlight technical structure studies. Now, if you see re-highlight structure studies, my concern that was because we we had experiences much earlier when students have floating roof, when students did not resolve on the construction, when students did not come with an appropriate detailing. So what happened is that I rework, I reschedule the structural and technical studies to be much earlier. So basically what happened is that right after they're done with their preliminary design, when they're done with the floor plans, site plan and all that, okay, just the floor plans and all that, then straight away they move on to the structural understanding. So they move on straight away to the technicalities, okay, rather than looking into elevations, looking into the 3D and all that. So all that is being pushed way back so that we want them to solve on the conception much earlier. So when you do this, when you move the structural studies or the technical study much earlier, right after they have sorted out with their floor plans, so at least they have time to rework with the columns placement, they have time to re-tutoring with about on their structure, on their roof especially, and they have time to make models at home, supposedly. So I think that was one of the successful story that I can always share, that I would love to do this again the coming semester. So having this, the part when I see the most concern of the students to be much earlier, so they have more time to sort this out. So by the end of the semester, at least they have times, they have multiple of times when they work on their technical and the construction. Then lastly is when I reduce number of submissions. Of course, this was instructed by the department because we wanted to have less of the assessment, but more focus. So this is what we did. So rather than have 5 different crits, I have merged some of the crits. So what happened? We only have 2 more crits to go back back then. So we have crit number 1 being done much before MCO. Then we have another 2 crits to do. So crit 2, when I merged 2 different crit sessions. It sounded very scary back then because everyone was concerned about whether the students managed to do this, but it went all right. Now, number 3 is, and then it was conducted online. And crit number 3 is when we have overall screen. So we do not have specifically crit session on the structure or on the sustainability teachers, but we merge that to all of them together. And I have my reason for doing that. Now, moving on for the second concern is on the third concern. Now, the third concern is about, if you remember, my concern back then is about the final outcome. What would happen? What would come out from the students at the end of the semester? So to ensure that they are consistently working, they have time to rework on their design. So what happened is that we introduce onwards, or specifically is online moderations. Now, what is it, online moderation? It's actually just a mini submissions prior to your crit session. So this sounds similar what we do in studio, in normal studio days, but maybe because it's ODL, maybe because it's online, and you make it sound like it's a moderation. So the students somehow they took this very seriously, and they work hard to produce drawings for the onwards. So what happened? How the onward works is that, as you can see from the screen, so the onwards, like I said, is a series of submissions before the actual quiz session. So we have 2 quiz sessions already scheduled by then. So before we arrive at quiz session, quiz number 2, for example, I have actually scheduled 2 onwards to get into the quiz session. So the onward number 1 basically is just focusing on preliminary design, the floor plans, the planning and all that. Then 2 weeks after that, they were given, they were supposed to focus on the structure study, where they focus on roof and construction details. So what happened is that during onward 1 and onward 2, this duration, they were supposed to submit drawings on the day when they're supposed to. So for example, onward 1, they submit the drawings on the preliminary design, and then they get feedback from the tutors, and they come back and they will do on their own or revise what has been commented. Then by the time they arrive at the actual crit session, crit 2, they already have most of the things being prepared. So it worked well back then. And then we continue that with the grade 3. But because of the situation back then, it was so much calmer, it was so much safer for the student to return to the campus. So we were fortunate because 08 students, we were allowed to come back to the studio. So yes, we did. The student came back, and then we still continue with the onward. But for the quiz session, they come out and they pin up the drawings physically, and then they presented their work to the external. So the process of onwards actually work both with online as well and physical, so face to face. So maybe this is something that you might consider. All right. So this onwards, this is the key one. But I'm talking about onwards is that how it worked is that I think what make last semester work because of this onwards. So for example, the one I'm showing you on the screen is when the entire students being divided into groups of 10. Okay, basically about 6 to 9 students per group, for example. Then I'm looking into the screen, yeah. So for example, this panel A, they'll be divided into 2 different groups. So each group consists of about 9 students, and then assigned to the respective tutor. So what happened is that during onwards, they will stick to this group throughout the whole semester. So during onwards is when this group of students, they will submit the drawings to the tutor, and then what happened? This tutor what happened is that we do a cross tutoring. So in this group A, for tutor 1 and tutor 2, they cross moderate their cross tutoring the group between them. So for example, tutor 1 will be assessing the group 2 students. So we do this, and then this process of cross moderation is was gone through a series of forms online, and then the feedback is given back to the student. All right. So what happened is that's how it worked. But however, before the students get the feedback, we will meet up again. All tutors we will meet up again, and then we'll give feedback each other to all 10 tutors. They will give feedback what went wrong, what can be improved, what is the progress right now, and then what happened is that then I will sit down, and then we will share all the general comments to the students. Now, onward basically was because of the template. So every time before onwards, what you're supposed to do is we're supposed to give a briefing to the students on what we expected to do. So the submission formats, we give drawing requirements, the labeling, submission methods, and all this should be done through Google Drive. So what happened is that the most important part is that when you tell them to onwards, all right, the most important thing is that they have to tell them what is to expect. This one is something that we didn't get to do much when we do face-to-face. So onwards allow us to do that, and when it's written well this way, students can see, and then that's what they do. And then moving on to the how they managed to submit their drawings is when you created Google Drive. So each one of the students will submit to their own
Koordinasi kerja khusus untuk maklumat fakulti dari mana yang telah dijatuhkan di awal mesyuarat tadi. Perhatikan.
Sorry. Okay, I'm about to finish anyway. So, and lastly is that when they have submitted the drawings online, and everybody, all these tutors can see the drawings, and then the students will give feedback online assessment. So the one you see on the right bottom side is when I have a template for the assessment sheets, when lecturers can fill in the comments, and they will return back to the students in any way that they prefer by students. So generally, this is what happened during onwards, and then this is what happened during crit session when we have a group of panels come in for group 2, crit 2 and crit 3, and it was good because we have both ODL assessment, we have also physical assessment being done throughout the semester, and then everybody started with a complaint, but towards the end, there wasn't any complaint. So it was something experience that we had. And then the last one I would like to share is what the comparison or what the process what this example of students who actually underwent OMODs. So as you can see, there's OMOD 2, OMOD 1, and OMOD 2 going to OMOD CRIT 2. Now, as you can see, OMOD 2, when the students are expected to have this preliminary designed, the concept and the floor plans, then number 2 is when they have different requirements. And then CRIT 3, when the actual assessment takes place for the semester, is when you can see all this. So can you see the difference between the OMODs process, the OMOD submission and the critic session? So you can see how students actually improve from there, and they are all ready by the time they arrive at the crit session. So what's the advantage of OMOD as one of the main strategy that I have implemented is because is good for the students as for the tutors. The students, from what they commented on me, it tend to give them to work progressively because they know every 2 weeks they have submission. And then the best part is that the students have the personal feedback from the tutors as well as other tutors from other groups. And then they get the general feedback whenever we meet during the studio meeting, OSMeet. And then also at the same time, the best part is about when you have OMODs is that you have a backup files for the students. So when there were cases when they were having issues with the laptop, when they lost the file and all that, so we have a backup. So it happened last semester. So I actually have that, and they can actually reuse it back for the actual crit session. For the tutors, OMOD worked because it was consistent tutoring. So the lecturers, they know that every of the students progress consistently. They saw the process. They have evidence of a recording of the assessment as well as the drawings. For the archiving, and the best part is that we can cross-check between each other, between groups, and to the whole studio. So we can see what other students are progressing, the performance of the studio. So it was all magically happening online last semester. And of course, the best part about OMODs is when we actually exchange ideas. Because sometimes ODL, when we had experience about it didn't work and all that, so ODL had that chance of us to do the exchange sharing. So yes, recommendation strategy, only three keywords: strategize needed. Of course, we need to strategize our teaching and learning in the studio. Number 2 is, of course, it should be supplemented by a good organization. So if you have a strategy but you don't organize it properly, I think it will not work as successfully. Number 3 is, I think, recommendation is willingness to explore. So explore, don't be scared. I know it was not easy to adapt to new things, but exploration would help us to be a better academician, to be a better tutor in the studio, inshallah. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening to presentation. Just to share a little bit how UiTM has all the ODL platform being provided in their PPI, Pusat Pejabat Pembangunan Infrastructure, UiTM. So when you can have all sorts of ODL platforms that we can download and use the account given by UiTM. Okay, so we are moving towards there, UiTM, we're moving towards there. So yes, we can do this. Inshallah, the next coming semester will be totally ODL, inshallah. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. That will be all for my presentation today.
All right. Thank you, Nikki, for very well thought, well prepared presentation. So remember, great routine for your students: strategize, organize, and explore. And again, thank you very much for all presenters for their informative and exciting talk. So we have come to the question and answer session. So I will start reading some question, if there is question in the chat box. But let's say if you want to ask the speaker directly, if you want to ask the speaker directly to do so, please raise up your hand so that we can see who is trying to talk, so that no overlap there. And before posing your question, please mention your name and affiliation, and to which presenter you address your question to. So all questions should be in a professional nature and in a form of question, and in fairness to the speakers and other attendees, other participants, only one question per person is allowed. All right. So I now officially open the session for Q&A. Inshallah, I'm going to open it for half an hour. Okay, so is there any question from the floor? ke semua at all sebab macam dengar banyak sangat maklumat kan. So is there any question? Feel free to raise up your hand and just proceed with your question. Alright, so if there's no question from the floor, allow me to ask. Alright, for all three speakers, I think my question here is, I think it's in everybody's mind, cuma tak nak tanya kot. Okay, so since the first session of ODL is actually very abrupt, tiba-tiba, kita tak bersedia. So now it's the new semester. What are the first thing that all lecturers have to do and have to prepare, alright, in order for us to have a smooth sailing ODL session, inshallah. Alright, can we start with Dr. Zahid?
Okay, so I think the thing about what we can do for this semester as compared to last semester is to actually to plan the learning experience from the get-go. So we have in UM the semester starts next week. By now everybody should already be thinking about how they should design the learning experience for the students, taking into account the synchronous learning, the asynchronous learning, and any of the available tools that that's available. I see in the slide by Nik just now, the reference cards and the user guides for ICT services that UiTM offers, which is really impressive. So congratulate. I think I would like to congratulate the ICT service in UiTM for being able to do this. Of course, when you are thinking about designing the learning experience, I would say that make sure that you design it so that then you know that the students can learn as effectively as possible. There are many ways, many ideas that you can explore. This is, I think, the time for you to explore all the available technology and also all the available platforms that your university offers for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zahid. Dr. Naziah, anything to share? What are the tips and tricks for us, right, for the built environment lectures to ensure that our ODL session next semester will run smoothly?
Actually, we have drafted for this semester, which supposedly started this week, using the blended learning. 40% are doing face-to-face, another 60% online. But since the COVID-19 hit again, we have to provide 100% online class. Since then, we have to rearrange followings on the online learning. We are going to have we have to change on the assessment, on the class, on the but we're not going to change the content of the syllabus or the content of the outcomes of the studies of the course. We have been prepared by CDAE, our creative departments in USMs, for our lecturers trainings regards on this online learning. So everything has been brief and well prepared, especially on the platform itself. I think that UiTM have done the best. What did Dr. Nik mention is quite impressive. It's really impressive. It's give all the details, but at USM it depends on the lecturer itself, how we managed to do the class, the online class, but in regards on the content itself. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Naziah. For Nikki, so anything to share, especially on studio, the perspective of preparing a studio session, right? So I'm sure that most of the studio base are eager, right, to conduct ODL this semester, upcoming semester. Anything to highlight before they embark on this journey?
Thank you, Puan Suhaidah. Before I answer that, I would like to, maybe there's a question from Sani Razak about how can online learning replace missing interaction materiality. Now, I understand very well, this is one of the setback of ODM. Where students are not, they don't have the opportunity to use the sense of touching, to use the sense of smell in their design learning, especially. I'm focusing on design studio when it's very theoretical. So some things that students can actually manage themselves, especially the upper years, when they are familiar with the character, with the attributes of the material. So it shouldn't be as problem as much. But for the lower years, this might be an issue, especially the year 1 and year 2, when they are only about to understand what concrete is, how brick works and all that. So they do have issues these days. Unfortunately, to find the solution for that is not yet something that we have to suggest right now, but inshallah, if time allows, the coming semester in UiTM, although for now we're going to go through the entire ODL throughout the semester, but we pray very much there were times when students can be are allowed to return to the campus, or at least spend time in the lab, to do this together with the studio mates, rather than just doing it on their screen without touching bricks, without smelling, and all that. So it's an offset of ODL, but something that we can look into this the coming semester. So we hope very much the chance to return for students to return back to the campus, kan, kalau boleh dapat student balik just for a few times, maybe 1-2 times, but again of course it depends very much on the situation of pandemic. Now returning back to what Puan Suhaidah inquired earlier is about how do we go about with the coming ODL, the coming semesters. I think all other presenters have mentioned about all the possibility of platform to be explored, how there's grants that we can try to apply for. Something that I learned, I would love to do that, but I think again I always go back to basic. When you just have to chill back, you just have to sit down and maybe have a willingness to ask around and willingness to just share around discussion with the studio, with the tutors, on how do we go about, because every semester we'll have a different batch of students. They will have different performance, so what might work with last semester might not work with the coming ones. So we always have to be flexible with our method. But again, I'm holding on to the 3 keywords: strategize, organize, and willingness to explore for my my feedback on your comment, on your questions.
All right, thank you, Nikki. And we have one question from Mawa. So she asked about the ODL design studio. Should the ratio 1:15 lecturer to student ratio still stands? For this one, I cannot answer this. Maybe I can pose the question to Nikki on this one. Maybe what you can advise them to, the right ratio for the students.
Thank you. Puan Mawal Masri, ODL design studio should be 1:15. Lecture student ratio still stands. Okay. It will be challenging. It will be challenging. Although I heard experience from fellow colleagues that work with 1:20, 1 to 22 students for design, but that is the upper year student. So 1 to 15, if you say the ratio just will not work as much physically, face-to-face, because as advised, it should be 1 to 10, 1 to 12. But if 1 to 15, because ODL, it means you just have to find a way on how to shorten and how to give it back to students as much as possible rather than go individual. I know, okay, just to share with you, Puan Mawa, out of 84, you can say 10% did not follow through last semester. Why I say did not follow through is because of depression, because they can't cope with the ODL, because of many other reasons. But this is anticipated every semester. So what happened, Puan Mawa? We created one extra group tutorial when a few tutors for me and Puan Halina, we were tutoring this group extra. So we had extra hours spent with the tutors. Tapi yang the good ones, the one that manageable tu, we don't pay attention as much as to them. Tapi we focus on this, the group 11 or group X. So group 11 is where the attention should be given more. So 1-to-1 rather than half an hour per student, we had 1 hour or 2 hours per student just to cope with, so that they can cope with the rest of the friends that are actually manageable. So to answer to you, whether it stands, again, if you make it stand, then it will. So, but we find our way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. But I think the ratio you still have to refer to the board, right? So regardless, refer to the board so that despite the fact that we have to change the way we conduct things through ODL, but you still have to go through the requirements, right? Is there any other question from the floor? I invite anyone who would like to pose the question directly to the speakers, you may do so. We still have about 30 minutes for the Q&A session. Nampak macam senang-senang dia tengah digest tu. Okay, anyway, from the speakers, all right, all three speakers actually emphasizes quite similar things, right? The first one here, when you talk about ODL, you have to be well prepared. Okay, number two, go for minimum, right? So despite the fact that there's so many tools out there, Web 2.0 tools, there's thousands, millions of tools out there, but you don't really have to go through every single tools, right? You have to remember we are the first one to learn, and same goes to the students, right? Students are not familiar with the tools that we're going to share, so keep it minimal. So that's why when I look at Puan Niki's slide before, so she go for minimal, the tools that we basically use, right? Even before ODL. And Dr. Zahir shared that he only used a couple of tools and then placed it in one. Same goes to what Dr. Nazmur mentioned earlier, right? So she mentioned that go for minimal tools, right? So the thing here is for the environment, it's not something that is not workable. ODL can work despite the fact that you mentioned we have studio based. It's not easy to do. It's been proven by Puan Niki. Dr. Zahir already mentioned you can actually teach measurement through online learning. You can do that, and it is working, and it can work. And inshallah, in upcoming semester for the coming next week, inshallah, it's going to be smooth running, right? So if there's no other question from the floor, so ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the webinar. So before leaving the session, I invite all participants to switch on your camera for a while, just for a while, for a quick photo session, right? Okay, I invite everyone, please switch on your camera. Can you do that? Okay, make sure you are in front of your camera so that we can see your faces, your beautiful faces. Ramai yang pemalu ni, jangan malu. Okay. Yeah, let's wait for a while. All cameras on. Okay. This side. Okay, don't worry, jangan keras muka belum ambil gambar lagi. Boleh bertenang. Okay, yang lain semua malu-malu kah? Okay, alright. So eyes to the camera. Okay, huge smile. Oh, okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 1, 2, 3. Alright, another picture. Sekali lagi, senyum. Nampak gigi. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Okay, telah berjaya. Alright, so thank you so much for everyone on behalf of FSPU Academic Affairs. Right? I would like to close this webinar by thanking all presenters and participants for your active participation, especially the presenters last minute, very ad hoc, kita jemput dan sanggup terima jemputan. Alhamdulillah, terima kasih. So hopefully this webinar will be beneficial for everybody to plan your ODL session for the upcoming semester, which is dalam beberapa hari lagi. Okay, so thank you for your kind attention. Good afternoon. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. However, before you leave, please fill in the attendance form, alright, so that we can track siapa yang datang, and then kita boleh bagi jam latihan. Itu penting ya. Alright, again, thank you so much everyone. Thank you Dr. Naziah, jauh daripada USM, jadi boleh sampai ke sini. Thank you Dr. Zahir, thank you Puan Niki, and thank you to all participants. Alhamdulillah, kita akan jumpa lagi. InsyaAllah, we will have another session, another webinar will be organized by our Academic Affairs Units, FSPU. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Kucing comel tadi.